entrepreneurial family, and so over the dinner table we'd always hear about business, and our father would teach us sort of tricks to how to sell and win over clients and so forth, and he had a number of interesting ways with like salt and pepper shakers, teaching us how to understand value propositions and benefits, so leading with benefits rather than going in with this is the features, this is the salt and a pepper shaker, which was really quite interesting. And also we were very entrepreneurial, so what we used to do is when our neighbours would go away, they had chickens, Melissa and I would look at ways in which we could make money, and we saw that the price, which is what we all. We had a desire to make money from an early age, I suppose, which I think most entrepreneurs. But it was just also that passion as well. Yeah. So what we did is what we'd do is understand the price of a dozen eggs, and we'd look at adding value to that by packaging it, packaging it up really beautifully, selling it as free range eggs, and beautiful design, so we were able to add a markup. So we learnt about the value of selling, positioning, markup at a very long age. But that was way
what did your dad do?
So Dad was an entrepreneur, so he started a business that was mainly doing sort of office supplies and printing, so it was printing in the early days. And I suppose like an office works in the sense they did a lot of whole of office solutions. But before that, he started that pretty young when he was probably about 26, and he's still running it now. I think he's just heading up to retirement. But before that, he was always looking at different ways and had all these different ideas to start business. So as Caroline said, dinner table conversation was definitely focused around business, and we watched and listened. I'm probably showing my age a bit now, but I remember when the computers were really sort of coming in, and Dad got a computer for home and everything was in DOS, and so we're sitting down, I'm really showing my age here, but sitting down and learning to the DOS and different stuff, before Microsoft, no word processing or other software packages to help you along your way. But it was learning about the power of computers and spreadsheets and just the impact that would actually have on business during that time. And that probably leads us to, why we really love what we do. We work with passionate entrepreneurs who have very disruptive ideas and really want to challenge big players out there to do something better. We're really lucky to actually work with some amazing companies who are from the US, so SurveyMonkey, Eventbrite, Braintree, all very disruptive in their own space locally. The Catch Group, Ozforex, Vinomofo, an incredible startup success story. But what they all have in common is they're very disruptive. They're very passionate about their space and they want to do something differently. So that's one element of a passion that we had, and that's what our company is really sort of built around.
All right, well, don't jump so far ahead just yet. We'll fill this out for a bit. So go back to your education. Was your education in communications or what?
Yeah, I will let you in on a really big secret and don't really tell anyone. But actually, I did a Bachelor of Business, majored in marketing, and communications was my worst grade at university, or actually both of ours. I was very much a strategy girl. I loved global business, global marketing, market entry strategy and the like. But one thing which I really did love was writing and creative writing. And at that time, I was actually very passionate about music. And I used to started freelance journalism and started writing for a number of the music publications, the local rag trades in Adelaide and in Melbourne, and eventually scaled up to Rolling Stone, which was great. And so at university, I always knew that I wanted to go into business. I wanted to have my own business, but I just didn't really know what it was going to be then. So in my journey from back then to now was very much learning as much as possible and finding out where I'd be able to add value. But I always knew that I wanted to do something that would enable me to meet interesting people and be able to tell their story. So of course, journalism was one option. I was very also passionate about current affairs and international affairs, and at one point I wanted to become a diplomat, but I didn't want to move to Canberra, so that sort of ruled out the option. And I think it was pretty much the same for Melissa at university. We surprise, did the same degree. So we both did a Bachelor of Business and majored in marketing, and it was great. You always had a study partner, and you could sort of share different ideas. We actually got caught for plagiarism. Yeah, that will be left unsaid, but we did in fact, and it wasn't from a direct rip-off. It was sort of a programming thing, and we're just sort of sharing some code, but the code was just a little bit too similar for the tutor's liking. So there you go. But when I was as Chris said, we do have quite different career paths. So I actually went and worked for corporate. So my first job out of university was working for KPMG. And one thing that really attracted me to that side, I had a real passion about business strategy and what made businesses grow and develop, what actually made a business successful over one that failed, what were some of the roadblocks in the path that would that many businesses, from family businesses to larger ones, would meet along their journey. And so for me, I really wanted to get involved with the big end of town and actually learn from these companies that were providing advice and services to help smaller businesses along the way. I learnt a lot, and some of those businesses do amazing things from an advisory point of view. But one thing that I did discover when working in that space, and my space, I was working with a lot of small business. So I actually worked for NAB and led the comms for their small business division in there. Was that storytelling and actually businesses being able to communicate effectively with not only their customers, but when they're selling their story to banks, when they're selling to them to investors, to actually get people to actually buy into their vision, to buy into their journey was really important. And you'd see a lot of people that'd be stumbling along the way. They might have a great idea, but they weren't able to effectively articulate that. And it was something that I thought was a big opportunity to really go out there and help these businesses who are often overlooked in that path. So I learned a lot working with those companies, but I think probably the main lesson I learned was actually seeing that market opportunity. And not a lot of businesses out there really considered the small business market. I mean, it wasn't highly lucrative, but they're thinking wrong. I mean, small business and family businesses and startups, and private business is a massive part of the economy and just delivering such strong revenue and growth. And so it really does need to be focused and helped. Yeah. My path out of uni, as soon as I graduated from Adelaide, I bolted straight out of there to come to Melbourne. And I worked in the music industry, and it was at a really wonderful time when we were just starting to enter that disruption phase. So that was where I was able to experience firsthand exactly what the internet was doing to an industry. And I worked for a major record label, Mushroom Records, and I was national promotions PR manager there. And I remember attending an industry event and hearing this futurist Phil Tripp speak, and it was an amazing presentation. He was talking about how people will be purchasing radio, there'll be internet radio, and you'll be able to program what music you want to hear. You'll be able to purchase songs by one track at a time. And I'm thinking, oh man, this is incredible. I want to be a part of this. And I left the presentation and I was chatting with my boss, and he's like, it's all bullshit. That will never. There we go today. He said that would never happen, and and I'm like, yeah, right. So it set me on that journey to wanting to enter the technology space, and so I took a chance. I was at a good level a senior level in the music industry, but I purposely chose to take a step down in order to learn from take a marketing entry-level position in tech to learn about the industry, to learn about technology, to learn about the dynamics, how they sell, etc., through channels or direct, and learn about the internet. And at that time, it was when portals were all just taking off, and I didn't stay long in that market entry position, and I had a really wonderful boss at that time who gave me, and I forget the name of this book, but it was a wonderful read about developing how to develop online communities. He said, read this, I want you to go and build an online community for the startup, or back then we used to call it the multimedia industry. And I'm like, wow, great project, this is excellent, I can sink my teeth into. And it was a 6-month process, and so I learned about two-sided marketplaces and what you needed, and how to, how content at that time was really important. Content, what still is, content is king, and how it was important to get the right mix of content. And I did everything from doing the brand of this online community, to the business model, how we're going to make money, to launching it, to business development, to going out there and selling it to the multimedia and industry associations such as AMIA. And then also, it grew to be very successful. And then what we saw was an opportunity. There was a lot of startups and who would attend some of our events, and they were looking for money. And the venture capitalists and the private investors and so forth wanted to, tap into the next seek, or, be on the winner. And there was no real mechanism to help them identify, no events really like, Startup Grind, for the VCs to be able to identify, talent and get that deal flow happening. So we turned that, online. And so what I used to do was went to, the VC firms and seed firms, and there wasn't really a lot back then, and told them to sign up to this MIN, it was called at that time, and what we'd do would ask startups to submit their business plans, would evaluate and match it to the appropriate startup. So that went really well. Then I sort of left and got headhunted, and I was very privileged to be involved in the Melbourne IT IPO, which at that time was during the dot-com boom. It was one of the most successful technology listings at that time, and was able to launch them over in the Silicon Valley and Australia, and so, Silicon Valley and London and Spain as well. So it was a very heady time. There's a lot of money around. Startups were just, startups were the new rock stars. I would go to the US and go to these trade shows and just be like, Melbourne IT would have this little stand, because in Australian terms we're still quite conservative with our cash, and see these, just you've been dwarfed by these massive big trade show stands with, celebrities on board. And so it was a really good learning experience. But with a good old Australian grounding, we knew that you did have to be mindful of cash flow and make sure that...
Can I stop you there and ask you to talk about that? Like, that's a big deal to me, hearing that there must have been an immense amount of work. We sat in on an ASX roundtable not too long ago, and I know that the PR component of it is super critical. Can you go through some of the work that goes in, tell us some of the work that goes into this through the entire process, just to give an overview to these guys of what's involved in an IPO?
The thing is, for Melbourne IT at that time, it's because they were part of the Melbourne University, so they spun out of that. So from internally, it was a very big culture shift. So we had to take the staff on a journey. So there was very much what we had to do. It all started with branding, and what you find a lot of companies who are going for the IPOs, and that they'll relook at their brand and their values, and very important is to make sure that the staff are taken along the way with the journey. And that was something which was my role, to really spend a lot of time doing, educating what does it mean, who do we stand for, etc., and making sure that everyone was living and breathing the new Melbourne IT brand. We actually had the opportunity around the IPO time, because Melissa was, of course, working in banking and finance. You have massive retrenchments all the time, so she was doing consulting at that time, so she was brought in to do work on, that was the annual report on the prospectus. But what we had to do is we'll sit down with the would sit down with the finance companies, and really it's looking at the investor story. And at that time it was JB Weir who took Melbourne IT along the way. So they really had an understanding, after talking to all the analyst firms out there and the brokers, about the mood of the market and their reception, and really what were going to be some of the issues and the hot points we really needed to consider for the Melbourne IT IPO. The lawyers again and the accountants were very important, and we all worked very, very closely in terms of crafting what was going to be our value proposition for the IPO. In terms of, what is your unique point of difference? How are you going to have a sustainable business model? How are you going to deal with competition? What is your, what is your IP? Is it sustainable over the time? What are some of the competitive threats? So it's really, you really need to sit down and look at every possible risk factor and opportunity. And so you do work from a comms perspective. We work really closely with them. What my role was when we were doing, the listing press releases and so forth, was to really art it up in a fashion that you have the financial press releases that are very heavy and that goes to the ASX, but we'd also have more of a PR marketing press release as well that would really sell more about the growth and the positioning and where the company was going to go. And what we found, a lot of the finance journalists would prefer to have more of the statements and the quotes and the visions, and also then draw on their financial statements to build the bigger story.
What was surprising to me when we were in this thing was I always had in my head that it was the PR firm, their role was to kind of hype the hell out of this thing to give it the better price, to ultimately get more money for the entrepreneur, when that's in fact totally not the case. Yeah.
The whole process, like going down the IPO process, ideally it's like a 12-month journey. But a lot of them probably really start getting active about sort of 6 months before, but it is very much about sort of being very moderate in your statement. It's not about hype, it's not about leading the market, and there's specific rules that you have to play with as well. So if you are lucky to going down the pathway to step the board, your messaging is going to change over the 12-month period. So what you might, before you even sort of signal it to the market, you might see a lot of companies are sort of getting quite active, sort of talking about elements of their business, their corporate story, why they're good. They'll be talking about, their growth, or in terms of aspects of, different investments, or how they're putting on different staff, or how this is actually improving their operations. So different momentum stories that are actually making them look like a market leader or strong in their space. As you're getting closer down to the IPO, from a PR point of view, it's really careful management, and as Caroline mentioned, a lot of it is a lot of back-end work, just getting all those key messages right, so you're actually ready to deal with a lot of different probing questions around risk and different aspects of your offer. But when you're actually moving down the process, you tend to switch from doing the more of the, I suppose it's not really hype, it's more just sort of communicating your strong success, to actually moderating that a little bit more, and maybe even steering clear from some business announcements, because when you start dealing with the investment firms and the bankers and all, they don't want you to be leading the market, and potentially a story out there which is sort of revealing numbers or talking up, then potentially they'll think that you're actually you're leading, and
you could potentially have a lawsuit.
You could have a lawsuit on board. So it's just really just holding it firm and just keeping it very, very moderate. And even, the thing is, all PR isn't good PR. You have to be very careful about the opportunities that you choose. We took Oz4X to listing, that was another really successful listing. Part of that strategy was being very mindful about the opportunities that we were going to talk with. I'll just qualify. We actually worked in team with another finance PR agency. So we sort of split it up. They did the analyst relations, and we did the media side of things. But again, with that, with the Osforex launch, was very successful.
Sorry, can you elaborate on that? Because it's almost like there's almost a PR team that interfaces with investors only. Is that right?
There are financial PR specialists, and they're the ones who deal with the analysts, and the investment houses and so forth. So they go around and do the analyst roadshows with the CEOs and talk to educate them about the offer. Then there's they can also, these financial PR houses can also do general media relations, but because we have a strong understanding of Osforex's business and worked with them for a number of years on all their growth stories, we understood how to pitch the offer to the media. And what we wanted to, what we did was to set a bit of a calendar of timing. So, who we wanted to target, when we were going to go to market. When we launched the offer, we organised that there was, we did a call-in, conference call-in. We invited journalists to attend, and we chose. We didn't want to saturate the market and do lots of interviews. We didn't want to exhaust Neil Helm because it's a very stressful process. So we just picked a couple of very, tier one journalists to have a one-on-one with Neil, who did some, really good stories. And again, on listing, we saw it was an opportunity to really talk about the journey story after that IPO, and that's where we got. You would probably, if you had a look at the coverage, pre was talking about the offer, the opportunity, and then post was really talking about the journey, about how Osforex went from a little DIY flat coding to a global business, and one of the success stories. So it was an opportunity of celebration and reassuring the market that this is a really strong company. And it really worked. It really worked for them. But again, I suppose if you have a look at the freelancer offer, which was like completely different strategies, they went hard with PR from the start, and it was very much a strong media relations program. Matt Barry was constantly, in the media, selling up, talking up the offer, and so forth. But for Osforex, we chose to do more of a targeted approach, and that worked for us. It worked for Matt Barry. It's horses for courses, and it's really about knowing, really understanding your CEO, because of course you want him to be at his best, and it is it's a very stressful, tiring process. So you do want them to be fresh, and again, it's really understanding the offer in terms of this. There wasn't a lot of, it was a tight offer for the listing with Osforex, and a lot of the shares were filled. But with, if it was more of a retail IPO, then again, it would be a different strategy.
To put it in context, Osforex is worth, what, over 150 million now?
Oh, I need to get the latest update figures. Sorry about that.
So you guys, we come together on this Melbourne IT bit. It's the first time you start working together.
Oh yes.
Let's get into some of the fun stuff now with the PR group.
Yes.
Was that just a conversation over a wine, or said let's go into business now, or you had an opportunity to take some clients with you?
Yeah. Basically, I come back from working in Asia and in the US, and at that time I saw that there was a lot of in those markets, a lot of the startups and the entrepreneurs were getting a lot of airtime with the media, but back in Australia it was just dominated by the big end of town in the Australian IT and so forth. It's all about the emphasis, or the EMCs and so forth. And there was a lot happening. I was still in the tech industry, and I saw a lot of innovation and some really great stories, but they weren't really getting it in the press. And one of the reasons why was because they were still focused on very myopic tech message. They weren't really telling, we love saying that story, telling your story, but they were just very focused on the tech story, and they weren't they weren't really talking about a journey and really engaging the reader. So I saw an opportunity to start a PR firm that was going to be focused on these startups and these entrepreneurs to really help them get their messaging right in the first instance, and help them start getting into the press. And because of my background also working a lot in international PR, I could also assist them if they did want to springboard into the US and what the market was like. And also because of my experience working with ASX listed companies and also companies, worked in investor relations for a US company in Hong Kong. I could assist them with the story at the stage of when they're going for, whether it's Series A, Series B, etc. So that was the opportunity. And what I did what most people do. I bootstrapped. So I was working in my day job, and a few people approached me, of course, saying, "Can you help me with my business?" And I did. But bootstrapping is alright for a certain amount of time. But I think if you really believe in the idea and if you are really committed, you just have to jump in feet first and make it happen. It's either now or never. And the PR space is very competitive. And we were the first to market with a disruptive PR company working with these startups, and we grew rapidly, and we did actually judge the market really well. Did you want to add anything? So I suppose from my point of view, once again we were bootstrapping it, so I was working in corporate, and Caroline jumped ship first into starting up the company, and then I was doing a lot of writing and working nights at the side to sort of keep up with the workload. I was seeing all these exciting projects coming on board, and when I'd go out, we'd go to a lot of networking events as well. The big thing that you can probably take out of, if it's one thing to really take out of this conversation is build your personal brand and really get out there networking, because you'd be surprised, you'd never be surprised about just the contacts that you can make and where they can actually lead. The more people, the more opportunities that can open the door. So after work, I'd go to startup events, networking events. I'd meet these people. I'd do our pitch, and that opened doors to other opportunities. Working for a major corporate and working for a startup on the side is really challenging. You get sick of doing Alt-Tab when someone walks behind your desk all the time. So I really had to make the decision to get out quite quick. For me, as Caroline said, financial services, especially during that time, there was a lot of retrenchment. So every time when a new retrenchment would come up, I'd be crossing my fingers thinking, will my number come up this time? Will my number come up? It never did, but so I had to make the decision at the time, and we started the company. At that stage, we had a number of really great clients on board. What was actually really surprising, and this is probably testament to the power of networking as well, is that most of our foundation clients were actually in Sydney. Seeing that we were both based in Melbourne, that came through word of mouth and contact. So, it involved quite a lot of travel going up and back.
Can you talk about that as part of like a PR strategy? I see a lot of startups going back to, Matt's big on this. I know with a lot of grassroots community stuff now, you see a lot of that happening now.
Yeah, PR, most people look at public relations and they just see one element of it, which is media. And so media is the most visual and probably most impactful element of a public relations strategy. But public relations, it's all about the public, and there's lots of different aspects of that. One aspect is really about building your personal brand and networking. At the heart of PR, it's really about influence, building reputation and building awareness. And that means really having those conversations with people. All our clients will have a media component, but they'll also have an influencer strategy in there as well. And that means looking at their business, looking at who are the people that they really need to connect with, and working out ways that they can connect with them. If some of them are targeting small businesses or startups, then we'd get them involved in coming and talking to you guys and telling their stories. connecting them with, getting into incubators as well, getting their products into incubators. It's all about, you need to take a view with PR that it's just more than just media relations, and a lot of it is softening the ground and building those connections, because at the end of the day, a lot of sales are based on personal relationships and contacts, so you really need to keep that going, and it should be an essential part. Once again, a lot can be said for also building your own personal reputation. As a startup as well, funds are limited, funds are really tight, and if you need to engage an agency, it does cost money, but there's a lot of activity that you can actually do by yourself. If you're at the very early days of startup, then I do recommend look at ways that you can build your personal brand, have an opinion, use and get involved on social networks as well. So look at different journalists online or different people that are very influential online and try and engage them with a conversation. Have your own blog, set up a Tumblr, start writing some pieces and getting your story out there, getting your perspective out there. Because when you do switch on PR, journalists want to talk to you about your insight, your expertise, your experience. So that's all about building your story. And if you're just going to roll out the same old textbook stuff, that's not going to add a lot of value from a media point of view. So, be different, have an opinion, challenge what's out there. Because you are being disruptive, you're taking risk, getting out there and starting a startup. Startup is risky, but there's a lot of reward in that, and it's, not just financial, but it's the personal reward of actually building and growing something. So you've got the courage to do that. So have the courage of really sharing your opinion and connecting with as many people.
I wanted to kind of plug Startup Grind while we're on that, because I think it's very important to always say this to people when they come here to meet new people while you're here and take advantage of this other hour we have at the end. We had a guy from I was short on volunteers for an event, Vino Mofo, and this guy, I think his name was Nick, he came along to the next event, and I'm happy to volunteer because last time I went to your event, I went up and talked to the Vino Mofo guys and I told them about this new line of drinks that I had, and they ended up investing in him and giving him money for first production line. So I very much love the grassroots.
It's completely true, and it's one of the clients that we've actually been working with for probably about 4 years now is the Catch Group, Catch the Day. We came on board well before their investment, and that lead actually came through Twitter. So Gabby Leibovich, the founder, put out a call on Twitter, I'm looking for a great tech agency. I was on Twitter, you're an entrepreneur, Friday night, what do? You're home eating pizza on Twitter, that's what you do, you have no life. So I was at home, I was on Twitter, and I saw the call out, and so immediately I responded, we're a great tech PR agency, let's have a conversation. The next day we met, it was at the start of the year, around this time, start of the year. Businesses and entrepreneurs are planning the year ahead. They've got their budget in mind. They're setting their agenda for what they want to achieve. It's a great opportunity to start having those conversations and trying to, look for opportunities because people are very fertile. They're not locked into their business plan at that stage. Saturday, go in, spent 3 hours. No, actually it was a conference call. I had a 3-hour conference call with him on the Saturday. We got in on Monday, met the whole team, and pretty much did a pitch. We started work on the Tuesday. If I wasn't online, I suppose, if I wasn't sort of being mindful about those opportunities can come that way, I would have missed it. And 4 years on, we're still representing them, and their whole journey has changed. The whole PR, PR is actually an evolving thing. Your messaging changed, your focus has changed as the business changed. It's not stuck in stone. So we're very proud to have been gone that journey with them to where they are now.
Yeah. Well, you touched on an interesting point, and I think it's good to kind of have a point home. I think that everyone that I have up here was a startup, or it was a venture capital guy. He was pitching people to get money. You just said you were pitching people to get clients. So can you talk a bit about your startup experience and what kept you going?
For me, both of us, as we said from the start, we always wanted to start a business and wanted to start a business together. I think actually I was going through some old photos and there were some letters when I was actually in Adelaide and Caroline was in Melbourne, and we were talking about, it'd be great if we start a business and we do a business focusing on this. So, the idea has been sort of percolating.
It was a PR agency.
Actually, it was a PR agency, that's right, it was a PR agency. There you go. So we always had that understanding that, you know, this is what we wanted to do. I don't really like working for other people. I mean, that probably sounds terrible, but I think a lot of you can appreciate that. I think one reason for that is, especially having worked for corporate, is I love to be able to create and to be able to influence an outcome and see things from end to end. When you're working for a corporate, you're one piece of a whole jigsaw puzzle. Your biggest part of networking and sales when you're working for a corporate is internal. So you're pitching internal, you're selling internal. Whenever we would get a campaign, our biggest issue was actually selling it to the executive team to get it on board before you actually go to the step to getting a market. So it's still a client, but you're selling to an internal client. I would have all these ideas, but you wouldn't be able to implement them because there would be different processes. I mean, they had a campaign process of so long. I think it was a 3-month process, and I'd want to get that done quicker so we could be more reactive. But you didn't have that opportunity to be able to create something and just grow it. The beauty of being a startup and starting your own business and going on that entrepreneur journey is actually, I think, having that creativity, having that idea, and seeing it go from there. And I look at the business now, and I look back to where we started, and our team, we've got a fantastic team. We had our Christmas party, and I just didn't realise how big we got and how many people. Microphone issues. Microphone. I didn't realise just how many people that we had on board and how the team had grown. And it's very satisfying when you actually see that happen. I mean, the other thing on the startup thing, is risk, and it is challenging. I mean, there is an opportunity cost, and unfortunately, you have to make the decision about what you're prepared to bend on and what you're prepared to not. So, for me, I mean, we were determined no matter what to, really build a successful company. I mean, we're very motivated by achievement and seeing our clients do great things. I mean, for us, working with these inspirational people, I mean, like yourself, that's a reward, and just seeing them grow and knowing that you're a part of that and you've influenced that is fantastic. But being an entrepreneur, I mean, and speak to anyone, there is an opportunity cost, and you have to give up. I mean, for me, for so many years, I mean, I lack a social life. Your friends get sick of you cancelling. Working in PR especially, I mean, you get so many things where it might be a TV interview and you have to cancel plans to go out to, to be with a client where they're being interviewed. I mean, that's part and parcel of it. We work with a lot of international clients. You've got conference calls early in the morning, you've got conference calls late at night. So for me, I mean, the opportunity cost has been, potentially friends and social life, but then you've got your friends who understand that and they work with you. I mean, one thing that I didn't want to sacrifice, I mean, for me, family, so family's really important. We had a hurdle probably quite early, probably 2 years into our startup journey, and we were on the cloud. Everything was going great. We had so much new business coming in the door. We had plans for a really strong year. We pioneered our sector of the market, and we had a really great forecast for the year ahead. But then, life happens when you're busy making other plans, and for us, we had a family member get very sick. So we had the decision, and who actually really needed quite a lot of support and care from us. So we had to make the decision then, okay, do we maintain this trajectory of growth, or do we actually give support to a family member in need? I mean, it wasn't a choice, really. What are you going to do? I mean, for us, it was, right, success will come, we have to hold it back, it might take a little bit longer. So for 12 months, we had to put things on the back burner. We couldn't proactively go after new business. Our priority was keep current customers happy. Don't let them know that there's any issues. No one knew about it. Current customers was really happy. Then, luckily, family member rebounded back, got healthy, and then we put the foot to the accelerator, and we really grew. So, I mean, that's something to really take into account, though, too. You might have the best laid plans, but there'll be things external to you that's going to happen. don't let that rock your belief. Don't let that think, oh no, I worked so hard and now this has happened. Life is actually unfair. So, things do happen that you don't plan. You might work harder than your competitors, but for some reason they might get a lift off. It might be through a company or it might be through timing. Timing has a lot to play with. But what can't be shaken is your belief and keeping positive and really having that vision, because if you have that vision and you're still enthusiastic about what you do, success will come. It might be a little bit slower, but it will come. And then the other thing is to add too, don't be scared of changing and pivoting. We saw what a lot of dinosaurs and sectors. For example, Caroline gave that story about the music industry, how her boss was like, no, that would never happen. Digital music, that won't happen. You have to continually look at ways that you can evolve your business model. Don't be scared. Pivot should be a strategy. Really look for opportunities at how you can evolve your business. For us, our offer has expanded and changed as we've evolved. When we launched, we were a purely focused tech B2B agency. We now have an incredibly strong consumer division. We have a really strong content division. We have a really strong social division as well too. We've expanded into that space. So you need to have a look at different opportunities and just don't get fixated on the one idea, because that's where you're going to get sort of stuck and left behind.
If we look to the PDI group now, and you've got all these amazing companies on the roster, tell me about some of the things that you hold personally, like, wow, that was a big win for us. Was it getting an Eventbrite on board? What is something that you're terribly proud of in the journey?
I'll take this question. I think one of my sort of really all-time proud moments would have been Invoice to Go. I remember receiving a call from a girl saying, look, I'm interested in meeting. We have a startup, it's an invoicing app, and you've been referred a heap good. We've just got some funding, would love to talk to you about our launch. And I never heard of Invoice to Go, quite frankly, and I thought it's just a one-app invoicing solution. I knew nothing about it. And I had a meeting with the marketing director and learned more about the company. It was an amazing story. Like this guy, this entrepreneur who was based in the Central Coast, had built a global business, number one business finance app on Apple App Store in all the major markets. Just got $35 million from a sale partners and Ribbit Capital, launching an office in San Francisco. This humble guy, and I'm like, wow, I did not know that. And so what we had to do, what our strategy was to, announce their funding, as well as start educating the market about, what Invoice to Go did. But our plan of attack was to take a little different step. We always love to share the founder story, and most people who read about, people read about funding all the time, but what they really connect with is that personal journey of how they got the funding, the blood, sweat and tears. And Chris Strode had an amazing story to tell. He's a little bit of a rebel. He got fired from Macquarie for getting a bit drunk and rowdy at a cocktail party. He grew up in a trailer park. His parents ran a caravan park, and I kind of knew what the headline was going to be with one of the media when we were exploring this story. And our strategy was to really take a human approach to this announcement and go in with this rags to riches story about Chris Strode, and really have him, really position him as that really sort of game changer. What's the word I'm looking for? Not rowdy.
Larrikin?
Larrikin, sort of typical Aussie larrikin who struck a beat, but through a lot of hard work and persistence. And so what the result was absolutely phenomenal. It was front page of the AFR. We could have guessed what the headline was going to be, from trailer park to $35 million. Massive coverage in the US, all the major media outlets covered the story. We got Weekend today wanting to fly him down to his hometown in Shepparton and do a story with him and his family, and talking about how he became an entrepreneur and his road to success. So it was a really good story, but what connected it and what made it so good was that personal connection that we communicated. You know, how it could be just any one of you guys, how with hard work, you know, he was a bit of a larrikin, he didn't like, you know, playing by the rule book, and how he struck it rich and made it big. You know, and again, then we switched past that launch. We then started doing a lot more sort of product education, and he's getting a lot of coverage for that too. Other ones, I think, which would be this one, which we're very proud of. We've captured the day group. I think would go down on record for having one company on ACA record times. How many times in a year was it?
I think they were. I think we had 12 in 12 months. We had 12 to 14 TV appearances, and it was pretty much working out to a monthly appearance on ACA Today Tonight. And no, it wasn't paid advertising, which is the question that everyone would ask. You know, back then, I mean, a lot of it became to really build a successful angle with a story is you've got to get to know the media landscape, you've got to know what makes them tick, how they frame their conversation, the stories that really play. So do your footwork, do your research, get to know the journalists, get to know the outlet, so then you can frame your pitch accordingly. We have would have a lot of fun building pitches for ACA, as you can imagine. So with Catch, I mean
Team brainstorms are fantastic.
Yeah, they're really fun sessions. But with Catch today, I mean, one of them, what we like to do with a lot of our clients, I mean, you've got the big brand building pieces and really building awareness, building their reputation, showcasing their thought leadership. But you also want to have opportunities that can really deliver a commercial return. I mean, for our app, that's something that's like app profiles and stuff, so you can link back so people download the apps. For Catch, it was really driving member sign-ups. The best way to get a mass audience member sign-up is to try and get them on TV. The mothership of that is A Current Affair. They have changed their editorial a bit now, but back then we sort of owned it with monthly stories about deals. We would have these wacky shopping events on there. They were fun. The producer would say that they'd actually be the most highest rating segment that would have on their show. So much to the grief for some of the journalists who would want to do hard-hitting stuff, and instead they're out at the warehouse talking about product and Gabby dressing up as Santa Claus and all that kind of stuff. But it worked. So I mean, if you want data and stats, I was actually before I came in here, I was on the phone to the person who heads up Grocery Run, which is one of their businesses, and I said, do you remember, out of interest, what were some of the results that the ACA delivered you? In one segment, for example, they got in one night a whole week's of orders. They had 20,000 new people sign up to their site, transacted 1 week's worth of orders in one night. I mean, that is a massive ROI for a PR investment, and and it really sort of set them up well because it was successful then. Because ACA had a really good from their end it was successful because they got a lot of viewers. I mean, we were first in. So I mean, from that strategy back then, it was really about really building their database and just really looking for mainstream opportunities to elevate their brand, because they're in a very competitive space. Especially now, I mean, there's so many people in the online retail space, that was really elevating it.
Can I ask, look, you both mentor for Angel Cube, right? So we have a quick little acceleration class right here, right now. If we're a young startup, which most of us are, with little finance, what's some of the advice that you give these guys that go through that program?
I think one of the key things they really need to do is to hone in on their message and their value proposition. It's really difficult for startups because you're so close to what you're building, and it can be quite myopic. So when you're telling someone about what you do, it is very much about the technology. And what you need to do is just step back and have a look at it from an audience point of view. What we actually did with, I remember with one of the Angel Cube startups, they wanted to, one of their targets was to get into, was it Australian retailer or power retailer? And
I forget which one.
yeah, I forget. Well, it was a retail magazine. They pitched to us what was going to be their angle, and it was very much about the technology. What you really need to do is to step back and have a look at the broader issues of the industry, put it in context. What do the readers want to hear? How is your technology changing the way or solving a challenge that is taking place in that industry? Or even latch on to some kind of trend or hot topic that might be happening at that moment, and position what you're doing to take advantage of that and use it as an opportunity to tell your story. At the end of the day, journalists don't want to be fed sales information. They're there to represent their readers. So they want to make sure that what they're reporting is going to be of interest to their readers. So just be mindful of that, making sure that when you start to embark, even at the early stages when you're just building that idea, just make sure that you have a very strong positioning statement, value statement, and key messages.
Yeah.
How did you end up working with such companies like SurveyMonkey and stuff? How did you approach them, or and how?
Basically, reputation. I wish I could, say it was through a lot of hard and clever business development, but we have a really good reputation over in the US, and one of the reasons is Silicon Valley is really small, and people talk, and if you do a really good job for one client, then they're going to, when one of their mates is going to launch and kickstart the internationalization strategy, they're going to say, well, can you recommend for PR in Australia? And that's how, and that's really how it came about. It's very incestuous. So basically, let's say for SurveyMonkey, I think it came from one of our clients. I think it was Eventbrite, and the head of marketing knew the head of marketing at SurveyMonkey, and said, look, hey, you should check out the PR group, and we had the little conference call, brainstorm some ideas, and that was actually quite an easy pitch, and amazing company to work. I feel very privileged working with them, and you're going to hear a lot more about them. But again, also a lot of the venture capitalists who backers who sit on the boards, they again sort of spread the word, and with their investments when they're looking to kickstart their international rollout, they sit on the boards, they will make a lot of recommendations, and that's kind of where Osforex came. Osforex was with another PR agency. They're a little bit over PR at that time, a bit PR shy. But
we had to resell the reason why they should do it.
We had to firstly resell. Well, firstly they got, they were, the SL partners were like, guys, you should really trial this agency. I think they're going to really help your business. And they were still with another PR agency, and they're like, I don't think PR really works for them. And they said, look, give them a go, give them a project, try and believe me, because we're doing 99 designs at that stage. And so we had to go in and actually sell the value of PR first, and that is one of the downsides of our job, because there are some really good PR people out there, but also there are some really bad ones. And again, I find, a lot of where bad PRs come in, it's not really aligned to the business objectives, or they don't really understand the internal pressures of these high growth startups and high growth businesses and what they have to achieve, and so forth. So a lot of it might be a cultural thing and a cultural fit. But so they tested us on a project, and the rest is history. They've been with Phosphorix for 4 years, I think. Yeah, and it's the remit has changed considerably. It's a bit of corporate, it's a bit of product. It's a bit of social media, etc. So we've really deepened our relationship with that brand. also Lizzie Peters, who heads up our consumer team, and I, we also regularly visit Silicon Valley. We just came back from a trip in December, which was great, visiting our clients. And it's really important, we feel, because if we are working with US companies, you really do need to understand what their culture is like and what's happening, what's the environment's like. So, you know, we met with all our clients, so SurveyMonkey, House, Eventbrite, Indiegogo, and a couple of other sort of new potential, you know, sort of biz dev and industry people, and that was really good for us to get learnings and also understanding, you know, their strategy going forward. And we actually had a really good we had a really good meeting with House. In fact, we were sort of on the we were actually hotly talked about at a Sequoia meeting. They had with all the comms managers from all their investments, and so the PR group name was apparently mentioned quite a lot, which was you know, testament that you know, we are doing a good thing. So that was that would have been probably one of my highlights of the trip.
Alright, we're gonna end it there. I want everyone back on their feet. Here we go. And a big warm thank you to the PR group for coming out here.